name is Dr. Wandell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Today we're going to be talking about jail ministry, women that have been incarcerated. We understand that there are programs for men and women, but we want to be talking about programs that have been structured for just women, because women have different concerns than men. We have with us as our special guest an exemplary person, Ms. Pamela Thomas, formerly of Waukegan. As a matter of fact, she stated she was at the Market Street reunion last year. She lives in Gary, but her roots are still here in Waukegan, Illinois. She has been incarcerated, and she's going to tell us about life of women that are and have been incarcerated. Good evening, Mrs. Thomas.
Good evening, Dr. Brooks.
Ms. Thomas, I'm very happy that you have taken time for your busy schedule to talk about a subject that's near and dear to you. And you are concerned, you are your brother's keeper, as the Bible says, and you want to ensure that other women get the kinds of help that you didn't get when you were released from incarceration. I want, first of all, you to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal background.
My personal background, I'm from Waukegan, Illinois. I left home at an early age. Circumstances led me to be a child surviving on the street. During my life on the street, I was introduced to drugs, other things which society didn't know no to, but all of that came along with the lifestyle. I eventually became involved within the criminal justice system, and when I became an age, I started going through the penal institution. There aren't many things that I haven't experienced, and there aren't many things in that lifestyle that I haven't seen. I know that there are problems with women who come from a background such as mine. They have issues before they're incarcerated, and a lot of those issues lead up to addiction and then the incarceration. So I feel a lot of those problems need to be addressed, and maybe the rate of recidivism will be reduced, or maybe the rate of women from these communities can have alternatives to prison, alternatives to getting a conviction in their background.
Pamela, drugs and alcohol, why specifically?
Why specifically?
That you got involved in drugs and alcohol.
Well, it sort of came with the lifestyle. I was young, ignorant to a lot of things, and like I said, I wanted to survive. I wanted to fit in. And once I found out that if I consumed drugs or if I consumed alcohol, I thought about none of the other problems that I had. It made it easier for me to do that. I think it's a form of escape. And had I known then what I know now, I probably never would have consumed any, because being a child and taking cocaine for the first time, I knew nothing about addiction. I knew nothing about going to prison. I knew nothing about doing something to get another hit. Had I known or been educated about these things, or hadn't been in a position where the things could have been introduced to me, I probably wouldn't have went through a lot of things that I did go through.
Pamela, there's a member of our church, Mr. Jonathan Walker. He's the chairman of the Layman's Ministry, Jail Ministry. And he has invited several people, Deputy Director Jesse Montgomery, Illinois Department of Corrections. There's a female warden in the Decatur Correctional Center. And of course, Elder Anna Kaysen, who's a halfway house planner. And I'm wondering, by having minorities in leadership positions, do you think that the prison system or corrections system will understand the treatment better, since 85% of the inmates are people of color? Do you think there'll be a change since you think they will have an understanding of how to treat the people that have been incarcerated?
I think that it could be a change, but it would have to come from different avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though there are people of minority in certain type of head positions, they can't do anything if policies are in place.
Mm-hmm.
You have tough sentencing policies. You have this tough on war on drugs. You know, it's different policies that prohibit people in those positions and other people who do see the problem and are willing to address the problem.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do anything because their hands are tied because of the policies that are put in place. So I think the change would come. It could start with those people, start from the individuals and the communities. It'd have to be a whole slate of people who come together and promote policy changes, you know, especially changes that are better for the community and the individual, because what they have set in place now is definitely not working. The only way it's succeeding is if the focus is to incarcerate people of minority. That's the only success it has now.
Pam, I was really concerned because the crimes that the women, and probably men also, that commit are non-violent crimes, but they therefore extended a length of time.
I believe the biggest crime the majority of these women have done is crimes to themselves, harm to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the cases these women get are drug-related cases. They have addictions that they don't know how to come out of. They don't understand how to get. A lot of people that use drugs or do whatever they do to get the drugs, it's not that they were born and one day they say, oh, mommy, when I grow up, I'm going to be a cocaine addict. I'm going to be a heroin addict. These people didn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
There were other things set in place what led to this, and now that they're there, the thing is to address the problem, which is addiction, and it needs to be treated as a medical condition because that's exactly what it is. Everyone that's on drugs cannot say, I wish I could get high for the rest of my life. A lot of these people are afraid that they're going to die like this because they have no guidance on how to get away from it, how to stop it. How do I stop this process? No one wants to be locked and caged down like an animal, but that's how addiction is being treated, like a criminal offense.
So you're saying that the majority of offenses date back to drugs?
Are drug related. These women could no more harm a fly. These women do more harm to themselves. It's self-punishment. Anytime you see a person consuming drugs day in and day out, 24 hours a day, knowing it's killing them, they don't even drink water or eat food, and the human body needs nourishment.
Okay.
These women they self-punish themselves.
Now, the women that are incarcerated, they have children, right? So how many children are affected by this?
Thousands, millions annually. In Cook County alone, you have over 25,000 affected yearly, annually. If you take, say, this community here, you take 2,000 women and lock them up with 4 children apiece, that's an awful lot of children that the community have to feed. They have to give those children shelter. They have to clothe those children. They have to educate those children. When their mothers, instead of incarcerating, which one prison gets $25,000 a year for that inmate alone, they could take that money and spend half of it giving that mother treatment, and she can raise her own children. And the cost to the community would be, you know, sliced dramatically.
Pamela, this is an, an educational process then for our listening audience, because that number I have heard is up to maybe 30,000 per year per inmate. And to educate a child in school in this North Chicago area, probably $7,000 or $8,000 per year. And maybe in our community south of us is probably $17,000 or $18,000 per year. So who's benefiting from planting drugs in poor communities?
That's a good question. Who's benefiting from it? Because I feel like the war on drugs is really a chemical warfare on the ghetto.
Okay.
You got cocaine, heroin, all type of substance abuses, all type of substances, mind-altering substances that's placed in these communities. And these people, they can't get jobs because of convictions, they can't get housing, they can't get employment, they can't get education. Their only way out is, okay, the way I eat or the way my children eat tonight is I got to sell some bags, because that's what policies and the community, those are the options that they have left them. And I know back in the 70s, the end of the 70s, the private industries, it was illegal for private industries to contract with prisons, for the inmate labor the inmates.
Okay.
In the late 70s, it was lifted. So now corporations and they're able to subcontract with the prisons for these inmates' labor. So now you have this thing called the prison industrial complex. And rural communities are getting monies from these inmates. If you take 10,000 people from Lake County and place them out in rural neighborhoods, when the census count comes, the monies that go into the communities come from how many people are on your census. The 10,000 people that were taken from Waukegan, North Chicago, and placed out in those rural communities, that's who that money is going to go to, their communities. But yet they're going to come back here and they have no resources. So who's benefiting from, I don't believe the prisons are benefiting from it. The inmates definitely aren't benefiting from it. All they're doing is working.
I was wondering personally about this, because we have additional prisons that have been built in, like you say, rural areas in southern Illinois. Now, if they're built in southern Illinois, these are communities that need employment, and they don't know how they're going to survive, and so now that builds up their community. I heard someone mention that the building of prisons is a stock market item now. So that's when I was wanting to know who was benefiting from this. Surely it's not the people that are people of color.
Well, they have a corporation called the CCA.
Okay.
What is it? The Corporations Corrections of America. And doing research, I found out that a lot of companies have invested stocks in this corporate, and it's constantly growing. Rural communities used to protest against prisons being built in their areas. Now they're begging for them. Prisons generate jobs for those people out there. They generate income. But to build a prison, the only way the prison can be run if you have inmates.
Okay.
So if you need inmates, you go to the lowest people on the totem pole, who they consider people of minority. You infest their communities with drugs. You infest their communities with whatever you can to get these people to do exactly what they're doing. They're committing crimes to survive. So now they go into the penal institutions down here downstate. It's like harvesting inmates. You know how you plant the seed and you got to nurture it and this and that, and then at harvest time you sow the seed. To get inmates, you have to have a criminal. To get a criminal, a person has to commit a crime. So you make policies that simple policies that are considered it's against the law to smoke marijuana, or it's against the law to do this or do that. You have to harvest inmates to keep prisons going.
Pamela, in East St. Louis, Illinois, there's a Catholic high school, a former Catholic high school called Assumption High School. And our Senator Dixon was graduated from, so he's well aware of Assumption High School since he graduated from the high school. But that high school has been converted to a prison. And I would think it would cost less to promote the educational system in a high school than house people that are incarcerated. I was really shocked at that. And people, unless you get around and understand what's going on in your state, you'll never know.
Well, prisons, like I said, prisons are big money. And now, if you look at budgets, the national budget, prisons has more money than, it's higher, on a level higher than education. Now, when you get to the point of not focusing on educating a child to incarcerating that child, there's something definitely wrong. And the problem is that people is letting it happen. You know, these policies cannot be in place unless the people in the office were voted into those offices and the communities allow these, you know, policies until they're educated on what's really going on, until they open their eyes and look at how this, you know, problem is affecting the children, how it's affecting what their communities are. The children are the leaders of tomorrow. So if we got a generation of inmates, a generation of convicted felons, of drug abusers and this and that, what is our tomorrow going to look like? So I think people need to open their eyes and realize what's really going on.
A word that's overworked is recidivism. And why do you think, I guess it sounds like a broken record, I guess, why is recidivism so high?
Recidivism is so high because a lot of the people, when you look at a person's record and you see 5, 3, 4, 6, some people 8 incarcerations, a lot of those incarcerations are just violations. They might only have 1 or 2 cases. But because they failed to get off probation, they failed to get off parole, they incarcerated back. So it looked like this person been committing crimes all this time when actually they only had, you know, 1 or 2 cases. But the recidivism rate comes from when they are released from prison, they have no resources. Before, if a person has an education or not, before they go into prison, they have rights to all the rights of the Constitution. When they come out of prison, they can't get a job, they can't get employment, housing, they can't go back to school. A lot of them might only go to prison 1 time and be like, oh, I can't do this, I want my life to be different. I'm going to get me a degree and I'm going to get a job. Once you get that X, that's unrealistic. They have no resources, they have no avenues, so they end up getting hungry. They end up wherever they're sleeping. These people need them to pay rent because they can't take care of a grown person. So they need to do things to get money to get these people for a roof over their head. So they end up doing things and they go back to prison for a violation. That's where the recidivism rate comes from.
Yeah, I have to really admire you because you have doing something to curtail recidivism. Here is the program that you have is called and I'm going to let you to
Find her, feel her, free her.
Find her, feel her, free her. Okay, and this is a workbook concerning it. So you want to tell us a little bit about this program. And like I mentioned before, I have to congratulate you on this. There's an effort to house, you know, more people of color. We say that because 85%, and I mentioned to you that it was just Lake County or just Illinois, but you say it's nationwide. 85% of people of color that house in prison. So you kind of cut down on the recidivism rate by a special program. You know, tell us about this program, Find Her, Feel Her, Free Her.
Find Her, Feel Her, Free Her is a curriculum that I designed mainly because of my adventures through the penal institution and other agencies, other programs. I discovered that the programs that were out there were male structured.
Okay.
Women could sit in on the programs and they could take things from the program, but it's nothing that that woman could use to help herself. A lot of people say, well, all you need to do is get a job or get in school, do this, get your kids and be a mother. And a lot of women who come from backgrounds such as mine, they know this, you know, but it's something in them that keeps them from living life different from what they live in. So this curriculum targets realistic internal barriers that these women need to address, these women need to talk about, and that the program needs to focus on in order for these women to sustain a self-sufficient foundation. A lot of women go into programs because I was one of them. As soon as the facilitator get to talking or speaking, I immediately shut down because it doesn't relate to my life.
Okay.
So the curriculum was basically designed because it's desperately needed. And I feel if you have a broke TV, you take the TV to the TV repair shop. If you have a broke refrigerator, you take it to the refrigerator man. So if you have someone who's trying to come off drugs, who's trying to get a job, who's trying to get an education, then you take them to someone who's been through those shoes. You know, a lot of people look down on, they stereotype us. We're called ex-offenders or this or that. But the only people we've offended is ourselves and our children, our families. So it's a gender-specific program for formerly incarcerated females because women have different issues from men. This curriculum, I feel, is the answer to a national problem. I did a pilot on the curriculum last summer, a 30-day pilot. I had 100% retention rate. One of my problems is when I would present the curriculum to different legislators or people to help me, they would be highly excited. But when they found out that I was a formerly incarcerated female, it's like the light would go. So but I decided to keep pushing it because I feel once I get it started in the neighborhood that I'm from, and I have a lot of community support here, I wanted to go nationwide. And the women that go through the program, once they go through the program, I plan to train those women so that they can be mentors and certified to teach the program to other women.
Pamela, I noticed that you don't like to use the term ex-offender.
No, I don't like to use the term ex-offender because I feel it's planting a seed. And one thing my curriculum teaches is that you are not an ex-offender. If you've been through that situation, you are a human being that made a mistake and you can do things different. See, to get rid of certain thoughts, you have to remove certain seeds. So if I can plant a seed that you are a beautiful woman of color, a beautiful mother, that you can be all that you can be if you put your all into it. Then it takes that seed away that you're a bad person, you're an ex-offender, you're an embarrassment to the community, you're a drug addict, you'll never be nothing in life. Because if you keep saying that, eventually you'll believe it.
So that self-esteem and self-worth is sort of part. I notice a lot of emphasis is placed on that during the course.
Yeah. And the sad thing about it is this curriculum is something that probably should have been in the process years ago. It's something that's needed, and if something works, or if something has the potential to work, if there really is a war on drugs, or really is an incentive to help people in the communities, why not have something like this? You know, why do programs stay in place that aren't helping or aren't addressing the issues?
You know, I might mention this, Father's Day was yesterday, and this is the one time a year that we just emphasize getting together and be with Father. And I would tell my youngsters, grown now, that, you know, when they were born, I didn't get a book to come with with them, you know. So if more fathers, I guess, would take an active part in their family life, we probably would have less problems. Well, what about motherhood, though? How important is motherhood?
Well, motherhood is very important. I have a chapter in my book called Motherhood in the Hood.
Oh, okay.
And Motherhood in the Hood focuses on realistic parental issues that's not spoken about. It focuses on a lot of people who've been through the things I've been through. They lose their children through DCFS. Or they have to jump certain hurdles to get their children back. Some of them not getting their children back. And they have these false realities that if I follow this service plan, which is not going to happen if you have a 2-year sentence and you got this 15-month service plan, would automatically take your children from you. It's unrealistic hope. But if you've lost your children and you can't find avenues to deal with it, that's what this chapter focuses on. How to focus with rejection. You've been away from your child for 3-4 years. She's 15 now. Oh, you weren't there for me before you went in. Now you come out, you want to play mommy. How do you deal with that? Because a lot of women that do relapse or do that find themselves in the same situations are in those situations because the one thing they had to live for was their children. And they don't know how to deal with that parental situation. Well, how do you deal with when your relative has taken over that mother role while you're incarcerated. When you come out, you want to take over the mother role, but the relative don't want to give it up because they feel you're going to go back out and do the same thing and this and that. But the thing is, you have a right to your children.
I'm concerned, Pamela, about the Department of Children and Family Services, the role that they play. Is there a positive role that they play?
I was involved with the Department of Children and Family Services. I have both my children. I had 3 children. One one I didn't lose custody of because I sent him out of state to live with his father.
Okay.
One lives with my mother, but I was supposedly to have a public defender, a case manager. I never met my case manager. I didn't know who was the public defender or the state's attorney.
Okay.
When I was confronted to them, I was given the option, either you sign these papers or we're going to take them anyway. So because I was ignorant to the law and this and that, I lost custody of 2 of my children.
Oh.
But the thing about it is, and what happens 9 times out of 10 is the child comes back to the mother. It doesn't matter where they're sent to, who adopted them or this or that. You only have one mother. And that child, if they're 99 years old, if that child has not seen their mother, they're going to look for the rest of their life for their real mother. Because other than that, they fill a void. So one of the problems with DCFS and the laws that's been put in place is destructuring the families. You know, it's destructuring the families.
Pam, I'm going to give you a little break, but I'm coming back to your book because it's great information. But I want to find out, how did you meet Dr. Daisy Brooks of Daisy's Resource Developmental Center?
Well, I met Dr. Daisy Brooks because I have a strong feeling about this curriculum, about the different issues that's going on in the communities. I said to myself, a lot of these things, you know, that's going on, somebody else have to feel how I feel.
Okay.
You know, someone else has to understand that to help the community, to help the child, is to help the mother.
Okay.
So I needed to find someone in this community, because I wanted to come back to Lake County, who had the same focus that I had, and someone that was willing to give a community resident with a background such as mine to have faith in that person and give them a chance.
Okay.
And I found that in Miss Brooks. You know, because a lot of the time, like Martin Luther King, when he was born, his mother didn't know, you know, the impact that he would have on the whole nation and for years to come. And I like to say that that's one of my idols, and I feel that one person can make a difference no matter where they came from. You know, the thing is to start it, where you know, to begin the process.
What you're saying just reminds me of things are ordained by God. Accidents just don't happen. In other words, you didn't meet Dr. Daisy Brooks by accident, and I didn't meet you by accident. She heard your story, she heard your plans for the future, and I guess it coincided with what she...
Yeah, everyone that I spoke with, when I would ask, who would I go to in Lake County that has a focus on the community, a focus of helping people, and that's serious about it and sincere. Who would I go to? And everyone kept saying, North Chicago, Waukegan. You need to talk to Miss Daisy Brooks. One of my coworkers that I work with at a nonprofit organization in Chicago, he told me in Chicago, you need to go to North Chicago and speak with Miss Daisy Brooks. I said, well, that's where I'm from. He was like, well, that's who you need to speak to. So everyone kept mentioning her name, and when I spoke with her, you know, it was what everyone said, and it needs to be more people like her in these communities.
And had you not met her, then we would not have had a chance to meet and get the information out to whole Lake County. So God works in mysterious ways. His wonders to perform. So I congratulate you, and I wonder about educational grants. I know it's kind of difficult to start a program from scratch on your own, but have you looked into grants to fund your program?
Well, I've looked into grants to fund my program. There are a lot of grants out there, but because I don't have a 501c3,
Okay,
and you know I've had to familiarize myself with that.
that's right. That's
But
right.
I had to find a physical agent, and Miss Brooks has decided to be my physical agent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thank God for that.
Okay.
But there are a lot of initiatives out there that do fund programs, gender-specific programs, targeting women.
Yes.
And the problem is, there's not many programs out there. There's not many people who understand exactly what's really going on as far as the criminal justice system, the women issues, how it's affecting the children. A lot of people are unaware of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have, you mentioned about the Illinois Department of Corrections. We mentioned there's Human Services Department, which is a large service in the state of Illinois, and there's the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. Those three are large agencies within the state of Illinois, you know, that you could get help from. Well, shame, guilt, and fear. You want to talk to us about that?
Shame, guilt, and fear is one of the main chapters in my book. The curriculum is designed by chapters, and each chapter falls in sequence.
Okay.
Shame, guilt, and fear falls in the sequence of after the curriculum goes over certain issues. One of the main things that a person that was in a situation like mine, one of the main problems is the shame of the things they've been through, the life they come from. They might even be ashamed of their family home, you know. I used to make up a family, you know. I even changed my name, you know.
Okay.
The fear of doing something different, especially if a person used drugs, not just drugs. If you've been in an abusive relationship or this or that, you get so used to living like this that to do something different brings on a lot of fear because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And that's all fear is, the guilt. A lot of people can put up, a lot of women can put up with what other people do to them because they're put down by society anyway, especially if they get an ex. They're put down by me, and some of their own brothers put them down. You know, they expect people to do things to them, but what their guilt comes from is what they do to themselves. You know, what they do to themselves that affects their children. You know, one thing that eats a person up, a woman that's incarcerated, one thing that eats her up is if she has children. It's not a day that goes by and she don't think about what she could have done different or how does she get out of this situation, who feeding her child, who's holding her child. Is her child going to end up in this situation? You know, the shame, the guilt, and the fear is are mandatory issues that need to be addressed in order to offer a GED program or an employment program, anything else.
Pam, you mentioned your program is designed for women that's 18 years and over, and that's probably because that's the age that they're gonna come out of prison, right?
Usually, if you're going into prison, you have to be 18.
Okay.
A lot of youth are being given access now where they'll be held in a juvenile home until they're 18 and then they'll be shipped to prison.
Okay, right.
So,
right.
And that number is rising also with youth of color.
You spoke about the incarceration and, well, right after slavery and slaves were freed and, but the 13th Amendment, slavery abolished, 14th, Negroes made citizens, and the 15th, Negroes made voters. Then we have, it was illegal for a lot of states to slaves to learn how to read and write. Okay? So, and then another group became the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, was organized also. But what effects did the KKK have in the prison system? I understand that there's a group in the prison system.
One thing about the group in the prison system, you have two people in the prison system. You have staff and you have inmates.
Okay.
And the majority of the inmates, if they're people of color, you know, and if KKK does exist in the prison system, it's amongst staff members.
Wow.
I remember a time when I was in a co-ed prison. I won't mention no name, but I was in a co-ed prison, and this certain town had a KKK rally going on within the town.
Wow.
And a lot of the staff members were a part of that rally. I was standing there waiting for a guard to come escort me to school because it was a co-ed prison.
Okay.
And he just hollered, "Hey," you know, that N word.
Okay.
And I'm the only one standing there, you know. I'd been through the drug addiction, this and that, but to be confronted face to face with this stuff.
Okay.
You know, so when I looked behind me, you know, I was going, he was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it aware to the warden, to the superintendent, other different people, come to find out that he'd done this many a times.
Mm.
And nothing happened. Nothing happened, and a lot of the mental abuse is racism. You know, all in this, if you hadn't did this, I have the, they'll say, I have the legal right to either slap you down, or, and you have men, staff members in the female prison that will beat you down like you're a man. And they don't need much incentive to do it. They'll rape you, and if you speak about it, a lot of women cover it up because they want to go home. You know, they want to go home. You can't get any information out. The KKK, if it doesn't exist, there's similarities to it in there. There's similarities to it.
So actually, rape goes on right in the prison system.
Yes, yes.
And the women, if they try to report it, it's their word against the staff's word.
Well, there was an incident where an inmate, this was years ago, the inmate was sexually abused by an officer.
Okay.
And when it was reported, they said that she was mentally ill. So they put her on a unit called MHU, that's Mental Health Unit.
Okay.
But the evidence was there. He stomped her. The other inmates heard his feet print was on her. She was black and blue. Mm-hmm. And she was impregnated. Now, this is an all-female prison. I can't get her pregnant. Okay. You know, they covered it up. You know, I don't know what happened to the baby, but it was covered up, and this officer is still there. He's a high-ranking officer now, as a matter of fact. I've been invited to the basement. You know, come down to the basement, bring some Vaseline, or, you know, and I had to threaten a guard one time that if he addressed me in that way again, this was the same guard. They shipped me from one institution to another, and this guard ended up at that institution a couple of years later, and I had to threaten him that I would tell. You know, but you try not to cause waves because it's very easily to get more time in there. You can go in there with a 2-year vet and end up doing 15, 20 years because you catch cases on top of cases in there. Wow. Depending on how they feel about you.
So the lasting effects of a prison is heavy upon women.
The lasting effects is, I like to call it traumatization. Okay. Traumatization. Because once you go to prison, you see things in a very different light. You understand the things that your grandmother and grandfather was telling you. You understand things like Mississippi burning. Okay. You understand what Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, you understand what these people died for. And you understand that it's real and it still exists. You know, and then what makes it sad is you get the true understanding that it's legal. And you ask yourself, how can this be legal? How can this go on in 2000, in this century? How can this go on?
Wow. And most of the inmates among the female population are single women too, right?
Yes, they're single women. Most of the inmates are single women, and if they have babies, the baby's daddies are locked up too. So you have the mother and father incarcerated, and you have the child out there that's being guided through sick foster parents or whatever happened through the DCFS system. But the majority of the women that's incarcerated, they come from single family homes. So They have no sense of guidance as far as the way society deemed that they should be. A lot of them, they have such a strong sense of wanting to go home or be at home, be with their family. What they do is they develop their own families. You'll have a group of women, maybe 4 women, one to be the grandmother, one to be the mother, and the other 2 will be the sister. And then if it's someone who dresses manly or has, you know, that sort of, you know, preference, they would consider that the brother. So you got the grandmother, the mother, the brother, and the sister, and they live like a real family. If you mess with one, you have to mess with all of them. But they have such they've been uprooted from their family, and they have this human thing in them to develop their own family, and that's how they survive mentally.
Ms. Thomas, I just have a feeling that the population that are watching this program will have a less of desire to do the things, even though it may be minor, to get incarcerated. Well, what you're saying is that they're there for minor violations anyway. So it's very difficult to go through this life, you know, without doing things to be incarcerated for.
Well, it's like, so like if you're in a war, and you want to win the war.
Okay.
If you take this stance, and that works for a while, then all of a sudden the enemy finds out that this works, then you find something different to do. So if you have a group of people that are being targeted for inmates, and they understand that they're being targeted, you educate them, and they start getting off the drugs, they stop committing crimes, they stop doing this. Well, if that was your primary focus, then you're going to find another way. So the thing about it, just like parole, you walk a very thin line on parole. If you make it off parole the first time, you are one very unlucky, because it's rare. It's rare to get put on parole and make it off parole that first time. You know, it's realistic to get numerous violations, because that's how the parole is designed to bring you back. If you got a capitalistic nation that's gaining revenue off your incarceration, it's not designed to keep you out. It's designed to bring you back. And if you had children, Lord, let them get in trouble so they can come too. You know, and that's just reality.
We speak about, it sounds, you know, the grace of God, I guess, was you have an angel, I guess, looking over you. There's no doubt about it. You have been released from incarceration. You have been released from parole. And now the Lord is using you, you know, to design a program like you have here to teach others how to avoid. And I think the book, Find Her, Feel Her, Free Her, this training curriculum for female, I'll say ex-offenders, but you don't like to use that term because people that have been incarcerated. This is a fantastic program. And also, you said that if people won't get involved, then they can contact you by email. What's your email number again?
Pamela Thomas at yahoo.com.
This is fantastic. And also, you have a chapter about humility, too. Yeah, that must be a tough chapter to write.
Actually, humility, all the main chapters are main chapters, but humility is one chapter that really needs to be taught to certain women. It's not that it needs to be taught to us. Everyone has humility. But a lot of people feel that when you speak about humility, you're speaking about weakness or but all humility means, and is what the chapter teaches, is to succumb to something, to submit yourself to the cause. Whatever your cause is, you drum up a lot of humility to that cause, just like drugs. You summon up a lot of humility and you humble yourself to the addiction by any means necessary. You know, if you got that time, you know, you can walk in there and tell that judge or that parole officer what you thought or what you felt. You summon up a whole lot of humility. So it's not that we don't have it, it's knowing that we have it and knowing how to use it. Just like for me, to do what I needed to do to get where I was at, you know, it took a lot of humility. You know, it takes a lot of humility to sit and speak with people, especially when they're stereotyping me, or I know that they're thinking this or thinking that, but I drum up humility because this is what I have to do to get where I want to be to help other people. I have to go through this. And in this world, you know, that's what it takes, humility. I've been sober, I won't mention how many years I've been sober, because it doesn't matter to me. I live one day at a time.
Okay.
But it takes a lot of humility, 24 hours a day, for me to walk around the gym shoe boy or to stay away from the substance that was keeping me from being the black woman that I know I could be. It takes that humility, and I summon it up. So I put that chapter in there because I want to teach other women how to summon that humility up. It's already there. They just have to know how to call it.
So what you call this is a second chance opportunity then, for it, right?
I call this a realistic opportunity.
Okay.
I call it because it's filled with real life experiences. It's written in a language that the women can understand. It's not in clinical terminology, you know, words that fly over your head, and every 5 sentences you got to go get the dictionary to see what the book talking about. You know, so it's written in a language that we can understand. It's written, I use my story, well, it's based on my life and other women's lives who've been through realistic situations that'll happen to women, situations that will get these women down when they come out. Like if I fill out 5 job applications and the people don't call me for a job because of the X, you know, what do I do? How do I keep myself motivated? How do I, you know, go on to the next job interview and fill out the next application? That's what this focuses on.
What about military service? Would you recommend the high school, but male and female, to take a look at the military service? You think the discipline that they receive there will put them on the right track?
I think the military is designed for discipline, definitely, but our youth of color, if they're not enticed to go into the military, you know, they wind up in prison. The first thing people holler is they need to sign up for the Navy or the Army. I think they need to have the right to some of these jobs out here. Like you have people who have college degrees that can't get education. I mean, can't get employment.
Okay.
You know, I think they need to be enticed to take more, because when you think of a doctor or a physician, you know, a surgeon, you think of a white man. You know, you don't think of no brother up there with no surgical knife doing that. I think our youth need to be exposed to more ideas other than military or carpentry or something like that. They need to be, because we have a lot of brilliant people. Being an astronaut or you know, something that's, they need to be educated on more avenues than what they've been presented with.
I was really happy at our church this past Sunday. There were 2 young ladies that were stood up as said they were in their doctoral program, and these were young people in their 20s, probably, you know. And I was I talked to them right away, and you're gonna see them on Community Forum in the near future. You know, they. As a matter of fact, there are 3 at our church because one has got 1 year to go in her doctoral program in medicine. So that will be 3. That will be soon on the Community Forum. Well, tell us about while women are incarcerated, it's not a rehabilitation program, right? You think if they're rehabilitated, then they will not, recidivism will not be as great. But is there any type of rehabilitation that goes on in prison?
If there's any type of rehabilitation that goes on, the rehabilitation is done by self or by other inmates. The support these women get, the guidance, is through other inmates, because the programs in there, they either can't, it's not many programs, there's very few programs in here that are considered rehabilitative, or it can even get in education in the GED programs. So I don't consider it a place for rehabilitation. I just consider it a place for isolation, being used as human commodity, and being taken away from your black brother, from your family, and all that. I consider it a form of control of the minority population.
Well, I know several of our people that have become ministers after they've come out of prison. Well, I should say, while they were in prison, they studied the Bible and they became ministers. There's an avenue for that, I guess, because that's more self-discipline than.
Well, I can't say why they became ministers, but a place like that would have you call them some type of religion. Because the things that you see, and like I say, it opens your eyes to a lot of things that otherwise would have floated right past you. Like someone who's never been through that situation. They'll see someone out on the street, probably selling a couple of bags or something, or this or that, and the first thing they'll say, they don't need to be doing that, lock them up. But see, they don't know what they're saying when they say lock that individual up.
Okay.
Well, you can go to that individual, take that individual, probably communicate with them and find out, why are they doing this? Find out if they know what the stuff is really doing. Take them to church, do something, don't just say lock them up.
Okay.
Because when you lock up one, you're locking all of them up. And if you have a whole group of men that's locked up, then the children have no fathers. The children have no mothers.
This is a fantastic program you have for women, but I'm sure men need the same type of training also, right?
Yes, they have, I think all individuals need it.
Okay.
The majority of the programs out here are male structured, and I don't feel those programs at work.
Okay.
I think one of the problems is you have the programs that are out here, the people that they are targeting, the populations that they are targeting, the people who design the programs aren't fully educated on who they're serving.
Okay.
So the focuses that need to be addressed aren't being addressed. So it's not the program, it's the material within the program. Like one of my goals for Find Her, Feel Her, Free Her is to have a male version for it. Is to collaborate with a male who's been through this and get a male version to this, and a youth version. Because, I have contents in here that my children wrote, what it felt like for me to be incarcerated, what they felt like, how they felt when I was on drugs, how they felt when I came back. And now my children, we have a beautiful relationship. I'm training my daughter to be a youth advocate for youth whose parents were in this situation. So that's one of my goals.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with Ms. Pamela Thomas, who conducts workshops because she's a consultant and she's an advocate, also a facilitator, and she's an exemplary person because she's been formerly incarcerated, and she knows the problems that women have in doing incarceration. So now she has a workshop that she's conducting. It's called Find Her, Feel Her, Free Her, because of the situation that she's found among women that have been incarcerated. The women and male programs are structurally different, and so that's the reason she's concentrating on women. And she was telling us about there are millions of children that are affected, like 1.5 million children are affected in the United States because their mothers have been incarcerated. She gave us I would like for you to give us one more time your email number where people can get more information about the course that you are conducting.
Pamela Thomas @yahoo.com. I can be reached at 1-847-623-1034.
And this has been a revelation from God that we have met. We have done 3 programs back to back. We did a radio program. We did one where she introduced her tape that she's have put together that you can get from the email.
The Voices in Time video can be received. You can contact the email Pamela Thomas at yahoo.com. The tape is for sale along with the presentation. It's through Beyond Media. And to get more information about that, just contact me at that address, the email address, and I'll be sure to get back with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.